Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 513 Sports Attack.
Wow, Cory, man, we got a lot going on tonight. So we're just going to jump right into it. I'm Nick. Got my partner in crime with me tonight, Cory. Let's just start it off, man. Kyrie Irving, season-ending shoulder surgery. The Brooklyn Nets, you spent a lot of money to get him. You spent a lot of money to get Kevin Durant, and you don't even have him now. You didn't have KD for this entire year. You knew that going in, but now you don't even have Kyrie for the rest of the year. What are your thoughts?
I feel bad. I feel really bad for Kyrie, obviously, for him not being able to play. Obviously, he didn't really start off, too hot as well because he was injured the beginning of the year as well. I hope a quick recovery. Obviously, as a Brooklyn, if you are a Brooklyn fan, you're kind of hoping, all right, next year's got to be the year. And, it's crazy. And, Brooklyn's not bad. They were not bad, and they didn't even have Kevin Durant. So I really can't, I'm kind of sad for the game because you don't have a great player playing, obviously. But, I think they have no choice but to bounce back.
Right. I mean, I look at it this way. If I'm the Nets front office, this could be a blessing in disguise. And just hear me out for a minute, Nets fans out there. Just hear me out. Now you don't have your star point guard. This gives you actually a perfect opportunity down the stretch of the season to see what your bench has, truly what your bench is going to be. See areas that you could improve on your team. So this could actually be a blessing in disguise for the Nets. Obviously, like you said, speedy recovery to Kyrie. Best of luck, during your off season and everything. But yeah, man, I think it's just could be a blessing in disguise. Could get a better draft pick. Could find out really what your bench is made of. See if you can make some moves in the off season and gear up for that 2021 run.
Yeah, again, like I said, always to the next year. However, this also does let Kyrie get what he needs done, have time, have plenty of, rest. A lot of time he also can start working out with Kevin Durant. They can start slowly balling together and continue to build the relationship and chemistry. They already are best friends. So, to continue to be able to build that on a basketball level is going to only help them going into next year. But I definitely agree with you. I think a better draft pick is definitely in the realm. And obviously, this upcoming draft, you're going to have a lot of young talent. So
there's a lot of young talent, and actually a lot of senior talent. Like, I guess when I say young talent in basketball, I'm speaking freshman and sophomore talent. You know what I mean? But senior talent is, your juniors and seniors at that level. To me, that's how I classify it now because of this whole one-and-done era. But, yeah, dude, you're exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of senior guys in college that are coming out that could be like, not like a superstar, but that great role player that you're looking for to put along KD and Kyrie. You could even get a freshman star, lock him up, But there's a lot of potential that the Brooklyn Nets have, and especially with losing Kyrie, to evaluate their team as a whole, to see where they can improve. Now, a big statement came out. I'm going to shift gears here to baseball. A big statement came out by the biggest man, Big PAPPI. Basically came out and said that the Astros pitcher who said something, who's now with the Oakland A's, is basically a snitch, to sum it up. Your thoughts, Cory?
Again, I think Big PAPPI should probably just keep his mouth shut, in my opinion. However, I do not think he's wrong. Obviously there's no room in the game for it. And, and that's going to stick with them. It's going to stick with all the players. It's going to stick with them for their whole careers. There'll be a little asterisk next to it. It's rough to say. But the thing I liked most that Big PAPPI said was if you had a problem with it, step away. Say I'm not going to be a part of it.
You played, you got paid, you got your World Series ring, and now you have a problem with it almost 3 years later. That's basically what he's saying, and I agree with him. I don't have a problem with him saying it at all. People are, trashing him for saying it. I don't have a problem with it at all.
No, and on top of that, these players that were doing it, if you had a problem with it, when they were doing it and like you did not want to be a part of it and were on that team, step away. Get yourself away from that. Say, I don't want anything to do with it. It's a very disgraceful thing for baseball, what happened with the Astros, and I think everyone is really free to say what they want about it because that's the sports world. That's literally what's going to happen. That's what happens. And, I love Big Papi. I think he was great for the game of baseball, and I agree with his statement. It's just really upsetting to talk about baseball because of that, because of the Astros. But, I think a great, he said what he said, and, they'll just have to make peace with it.
Look, I like what he said. I don't disagree with anything that in his statement because he was absolutely right. Why now do you have a problem with it, but you didn't have a problem with it when you were cheating to win your World Series? If you had a problem with it then, you should have said something then. You should have stepped away then. But now you just look like a snitch. That's all it looks like to me. I 100% agree with Big Papi. I like what he said. He's a good ambassador for the game, and I really think that people are taking what he's saying really out of context. When you really look at what he said, all he's saying is why are you saying it now? Why didn't you do something back then about it and stop it then? You know what I'm saying? That's just the bottom line. And it does look like you're just snitching on everybody now that you're on a terrible team almost. That's just my thing. Hugh Darvish actually said that the Astros would lose their title if this was the Japanese league. Your thoughts? Should the MLB really think about doing that?
It depends on how big you place that. Is that cheating? Yes. Should they take away their titles? That depends. Can you prove that sign stealing won them the championship? Won them the World Series? Can you prove that? Should they take that away? I don't personally think you take it away. It's tainted. That's what it is. It's tainted. It'll always be tainted. They know.
I have to respectfully disagree. I think they should be stripped of it. You were caught cheating. Now, look, yeah, you can't prove
after the fact. But you can't prove.
You're right. At this point, you can't prove that it helped them in the World Series. Just speaking about the World Series, you can't prove that it helped them. However, though, it is proven that it helped them during the regular season. So, if you vacate, if you go back and find all those games, isn't enough to knock them out of the playoffs. If it is, then it helped them win the World Series. Because they wouldn't have been in that position to play for the World Series if they weren't sign stealing.
Right, but what are you going to do? You're going to strip them of the title? You're going to take the title away 100%. From Houston? You're going to take the title away from Houston. Okay, the banner's already hung.
Okay, but they do it in college. They do it to college teams when they get caught doing.
Right. But you still get rings. You still have rings. You're still the champs. You can take them. You can take it away all you want, right. But you're still a champ.
But like Ohio State, we used ineligible players in the 2010-2011 Sugar Bowl. We used, Ohio State used ineligible players. They had to vacate every win from that season, and they returned the Sugar Bowl trophy. I don't see what's wrong with that. It's even in the books, it has an asterisk behind it. Ohio State won, but had to vacate. What's wrong with that? Just what's wrong with them returning that trophy and just saying, "Hey, You have to return it because you didn't rightfully earn it, but at this point where it's an asterisk, you have to vacate it. Well, why not?
I mean, I could see where they would do it.
They did it to Reggie Bush. He had to return his Heisman.
Again, case by case basis. You want to go cheating and everything like that? Well, if you're gonna let them do everything, you let it go on. Then you have to bring up this Pete Rose conversation. Honestly, so I think obviously you let baseball handle it, let the commissioner handle it, let him do what he's supposed to do. I think at the end of the day, I think it just is tainted for all the players. All of those players will always be remembered for that. I think, obviously it's already in the past. The championship they won is already in the past. Yeah, if you would need to strip it to make you feel better, okay. But I mean, at this point,
it's not to make you feel better, man. It's the sanctity of the sport and competition. It's the value. Put yourself on that Dodgers team, and you hear this, and you hear, oh, damn it, we just got screwed out of our World Series. We weren't cheating. We weren't sign stealing. Think about that. But put yourself in their shoes for a second.
I get it. I do. I get where you're coming from, and I understand. Would it be painful? Sure, but that would not be the only reason why they lost the World Series. I don't think you could look at that and say that single-handedly is not the reason why we lost. I don't think you could do that.
But I don't disagree. But I'm just saying in the act of them cheating, and it's been proven that they've cheated. You look back. Reggie Bush accepted money, and he has to return his Heisman, being ineligible during that time period. You look at, all this stuff came out after the fact for Ohio State when they vacated that. Boom. They had to return everything and vacate it. And this was way more heinous than cheating, but Joe Paterno had to vacate 300 wins from 20 years previous. You know what I'm saying? I get what you're saying, but at the same time, man, personally, they got to take that away or vacate it. To vacate it. That's how you keep the true competition alive. Because now, what's to say that these teams aren't going to go out, sign, steal, win a World Series now, and just 3 or 4 years later, oh yeah, we did sign stealing, no big deal. We'll take our penalty, but we're still going to be considered World Series champions.
So what's your penalty? The penalty is you're taking away a championship I already won? Okay, sweet. It's not about that. You have the commissioner, if it's going to be a problem and you want to end it, you got to put the hammer down. It's not about taking away the championship. It's about suspending them from playing in the playoffs for years. It's about that.
I don't disagree.
But he won't do that because they're not going to do it because they don't think anything of it. That's just what it is. They're going to let the players make the decision on how big of a deal it'll be.
Fair. All right. So let's just switch gears here because this is just something that happened. Browns offensive tackle Greg Robinson arrested for attempt to distribute 157 pounds of marijuana, cannabis, pot, weed, whatever you want to call it. 157 pounds.
All right, so first of all, answer this question. Is he a starter?
I believe, give me a moment here. But I just want to I want your initial thoughts on this.
Why? All right, you get caught with some pot. All right, I get it. That's fine. Whatever. I mean, I understand that. You're an NFL player. Things happen. But 100 how many? 157.
57.
What? Why? Why is that necessary? Why would you have all of that?
And he was our starting left tackle.
Starting left tackle. All right, starting left tackle. All right, well, I don't think he'll be playing in the NFL anymore because he's going to jail for 20 years.
Right, but
why? What is the need for that? I mean, I don't understand it. It's an idiotic bonehead move. I don't like it. It's not smart in any realm of humanity. Nothing. terrible decision.
You're
I don't
an
like.
NFL
I don't.
player,
I don't
man. What
like
are you
it.
doing with 100?
He just threw away his whole life.
Look. I'm going to say this. I don't blame these guys for wanting to smoke pot. It is proven scientifically that there are medical properties to this, including muscle, like helping rehabilitating your muscles in a quicker turnover by relaxing them and allowing your body to heal. There are healing properties to this. I don't disagree with them being allowed to smoke it. But, dude, what are you doing with 157 pounds in your car trying to cross the border? Like, you're not even giving yourself a shot here. Like, there's no doubt that you knew all this shit was in your car. You're crossing the border, and you're surprised that you get searched and arrested. Like, what are you doing? You're in the NFL. Call Josh Gordon. He'll get you some. Like, I couldn't even imagine. Like, I just don't understand that. I really don't. I don't understand what's going through your mind as a professional athlete. Hey, that's like us, Cory. Hey, you want to go take 200 pounds of pot down to Mexico?
No.
Right.
I don't understand.
Like, I don't even understand that.
I really just don't understand why. And I don't think I'll ever get that answer. I don't think anyone will ever get that answer. I just...
Like
wow.
But, like, dude, you could have just driven to Colorado, where it's recreational legal. California, Michigan. Heck, you're in Cleveland, dude. You could have drove 5 hours to get to Detroit and had as much as you wanted. I just don't understand. Just a what bonehead move. He's going to prison for 20 years, though. Isn't that crazy? Throwing away your entire...
Facing
20 years of prison. But
right,
that's the minimum sentence for trying to drug traffic over the border.
I have no words.
Like, it's just shocking. I can't believe, it just reminds me of Josh Gordon. You got traded to the Patriots mid-season. They won a Super Bowl that year, and all you had to do was put down the bong. And you would have been okay. You could have won a Super Bowl, but you decided to pick it up and fail a drug test. This guy, you're playing in the NFL, you're at the peak of your sport, you're at the highest level, and now you're going to traffic 157 pounds down to flipping Mexico? You're an idiot. That's all that tells me is you're an idiot. And even if he can recover from this, he'll never see the football field again. That's just my opinion. I don't know about yours. So let's stick here with the NFL core. I want to get your thoughts here on this and maybe what you would do differently in this case. The NFL owners have just approved a 17-game regular season and adding one more team to the playoffs to make it 7 total on each side. Is that correct? With the first seed getting a bye. Your thoughts on these changes? What's your opinion? Do you like it? Do you dislike it?
So, the playoff, I like it. If you are the best team and are the number 1 seed, I think that's a huge lift. A huge lift. But I don't like making the regular season longer. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think the season's too long already. I think 16 games is too much, too long. You're seeing too many stars, too many guys, too many guys hurt. You're really seeing too much of that happening, and I don't like it. So adding a game is not something I think. Now, obviously, I think it still has to pass the vote, right?
The players side has to approve it, but the NFL Owners Association has approved these changes.
I don't see them. I don't know how they'll react to that. I think they might agree to it because of the playoff, but I don't like it. I don't like adding a game, but I think the playoff could be more entertaining.
Okay. So what would you do differently then? If you were trying to revamp how the NFL... Because they've been talking about these types of changes coming for a while. So what would you do differently?
So I think regular season wise, I would probably have 13 weeks. You could do 14 to make it even, 12, 13, 14, because you really think about it. You know, you look at the teams who made the playoffs. How many of those teams were, at one point 5-1, 4-2? How many of those teams were already there? There weren't that many, outside of like the Eagles, who probably, this past year, who were like 2-4 after 6 weeks, but like.
But the thing is no matter what in the NFL, you win your division you're in.
Right. So no matter what, your division could be really bad. So that's essentially if you have, a 14-game season and you go 4-10, but or you play.
Let's say you go.
You would
6
go
and
6-8.
Let's say you go 6-8.
6-8. You could win. You could still play in the playoffs. I think it's. I think that's the major change. I think the other thing I would take out of the game, I think, is I would try really hard. I would allow movement in the backfield between like receivers, because I think as other leagues have done it, especially in like the Canadian and indoor football leagues, they allow them to start 5 yards back and they get a running start. I think if you allowed that to happen, you would start seeing less screen passes. You would be seeing a lot more downfield shots, and I think that would be good for the game. I think a lot of these rules that they want to make, at the end of the day, it's the players who are putting their lives at stake and their bodies on the line. So I think it's really up to them.
100. It definitely is up to the players. I don't mind this, but I don't like it. What I would do personally, I like adding the team to the playoff because I think it does make it a little more interesting. I definitely think that would, shake things up a bit, getting that extra team in there. I think they said if they did it this year, the Steelers and the Rams would have both made the playoffs. So you know what I mean? It just you add that extra dimension, and I like it. I like playoffs being a little bit more teams, especially because you get anything can happen at that point. Then it's really about where you finish, what seed you have, in the matchup that you could potentially have. And I think it really, at that point, puts more emphasis on not sitting players late in the year, because you're going to want to get that number one seed to have that first week bye. So I think the playoff move is good. Moving the season to 17 games, now 18 weeks, because you have to factor in that bye week, it's too long. I agree with you there. If I was going to do anything, take out the last 2 preseason games. Start the season earlier. Just start the season a little bit earlier. Or you don't even have to start earlier. Remove those last 2 preseason games and then move your first 2 to where the last 2 would be, and then you're starting on time. Because let's just be honest, the first 2 preseason games are really to see how these if you want to call them walk-ons, non-drafted players, players who are basically like, that we see on Hard Knocks a lot, who are trying to fight for their spot on a team. I really feel that you're going to see that's what those first 2 preseason, even the first 3, are all about. And then the final game is more of a real life practice for these guys. Now they're professionals; they don't need all that, tune-up time. If you're not in shape, if you're not working out in the off season, you're not keeping yourself in shape for the game, that's when you get hurt. That's why we've seen LeBron, as much as I, not dislike him, but as much as I quote unquote hate on him, he does one thing that no NBA player continues to do, and he keeps his body healthy in the off season. And that prevents him from having all these like serious injuries. And these NFL players need to start doing that, because you're taking way more hits. You know what I mean, Cory? So at a point, take out those 2 last preseason games, give these guys just 2 warm-up games basically, and then get into the regular season. 17 games, like you said, that's just way too long. More injuries, more things could happen. I just don't like it. But as far as the playoff, I don't know about you, but I like the 17 playoff format. The first seed gets a bye. Why not?
Yeah, I really like that. Obviously we'll see how it works out if it gets approved.
So let me ask you this: if you're a player, with this being presented to you, and you have your association meeting with your president, vice president, everybody, right? Would you be inclined to vote for this?
It's very tempting because of the playoff format to have that ability to be that extra team. As a player, I think I would probably decline just because of the length, the added extra time that you have for your body.
So you think that
because you could really you could really be adding like another month. You could really be adding another month to your to your time frame, and it already spans a long time.
I mean, you start in August and you're out the first week of, or you start September and you're out the first week of February, right? But what you're saying though, Court, is if this is you voting on it, the negative of having the extended regular season outweighs the positive of having that extra team in the playoff, correct? That's what you're saying?
I am.
Okay. If I'm agreeing with you on that. If I was a player, I would deny it for the same reasons. So something else interesting came out in the football world kind of recently here, Cory, and it's kind of going back to what we were talking about last week with Diantonio, knowing some of these violations and probably some sanctions were coming down, and that's what really kind of sparked all this, because a picture came out from, I believe, a recruit showing Diantonio committing violations. Your initial thoughts on now all this on this continued evidence coming out from Michigan State? Like,
I mean, there was a reason why he left the way he did. We all knew that. We knew something was going to come out. Something was going to happen. Again, I'm one of those people that wants to wait for everything to kind of come to the public and kind of be able just to kind of look into it and kind of look over it and figure out and kind of process it. But, it's the evidence is, he's it's going to be a bad time in Michigan State's world. And it's, especially if these things come out and are true and obviously look to be true, it's really not a good time.
So
it's bad.
I did get an update the other day, and I want to get your thoughts on this, being a fan of this team. Got to go to the big brother here, U of M, Michigan. There were some reports coming out that there's sexual harassment going on within the locker room. I didn't read the full article. I just know briefly what's happening. It was like a obviously not all of the things have come out on it, but it was they were looking into a doctor that was there, I believe, in like the early 2000s. I believe from the 90s into the 2000s. They're doing it themselves, looking into it. So obviously we'll kind of see what happens there. Initial thing, again, I want to wait to see what's going on, what all the facts are. I'm not really too worried about it at this moment. But as a fan base, where's your fan base at coming with this?
Again, I think it just kind of came out. Everyone it's internally looking into it. The school, is looking into it. So I think obviously I think it's too early for everyone to kind of freak out. I think you have to kind of, if something comes out after it, then you kind of start to say, okay,
if you start people speaking
exactly. So I think they're kind of, obviously, not too much has come out, and I think that's because that's internally how it would be if you were at a college at campus like that. Obviously, again, not too much come out about it. I'm not worried about it right now. Obviously, until more comes out, there's more facts and things about it, I'm not too worried about it.
All right, yeah. So we got March Maddness coming up, man. The best, if you're a basketball fan or just a sports fan in general, it's almost the best time of the year, right? Outside of, for us, college football season. But, March Maddness always has that special feeling to it. So, Cory, what I want from you is right now, if the season ended today, we're looking at these top 10 teams. Who are your number 1 and number 2 seeds? Who's going to be your 4 number 1s and your 4 number 2s? Where would you rank some of these teams?
So I think right now, I think Baylor's a 1. Okay. I think Kansas is a 1. I probably would pick whoever wins the ACC, which is probably going to be Duke, so they would probably be a number 1. And I think I would have Gonzaga
as your 4th, okay?
As the 4 ones. The 2s, it's so, once you get there, it's just so kind of just you're not sure. I don't think there's, there's a lot of teams that could be a number 2. I don't think, like, this year, I think, is one of those weird years where it's like you could be a 2, 3, 4, or 5. Like, and well, just because. You could easily go from that just by losing one game.
Right.
So for me, I think it's too early to tell for 2s, but I think right now, like I said, Baylor, Kansas, Duke, and Gonzaga, I think those would be my 4.
Those would be your number 1s. So, but give me your 2s. Just
again, I think a 2. I think a 2. But again, you can't just look at that. I think a team who wins the Big Ten would end up being on a 2 line. You could look at maybe Michigan State. You could look at them being a 2. It's really tough. I think Virginia Tech, I think, is good. I don't think they're, obviously of a 2. It's just so difficult. Okay. I think to really make an argument for a 2. Obviously, Oregon is good. They could be deserving of a 2. Colorado, they win the Pac-12. They could be deserving of a 2. There's even those teams outside of the top 10, obviously with still, 2 weeks, 3 weeks left, and then you have your conference tournament. Anybody could play their way to a 2 at this point.
Okay, so here's mine. I got to go with the top 4 here. I like Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas, and San Diego State being the number 1s. I go back to this a lot. If you're undefeated, especially in college basketball, that's a lot. I mean, that's 30-something games, right? 30 games, 32 regular season, I believe. If you go undefeated, like if San Diego State goes undefeated, and let's say they lose in their conference championship, I still think they're a number 1 seed. Now, my number 2 seeds, I'm going to take Duke because I think they're going to win the ACC. Maryland is going to win the Big Ten, in my opinion. So those are going to be my flat-out, I think, lock at number 2s. Dayton could be another lock coming out of the Atlantic 10. Right, they're in the A-10, right? Yeah, they're in the Atlantic 10. Florida, and I agree with you. Once you get down to these other 2s here, I think Florida State could be deserving of a 2. Kentucky could possibly be deserving. There's
like a pool of 7 or 8 teams.
Because here's the thing. I mean, you got to have Auburn win the SEC. They should be a number 2. So I do agree with you. Once you start getting down there, it's really hard to start seeding these teams. But I think if you're going to say a lock at number 2s, I'm going to say Duke and Maryland, and then Dayton is probably a lock as long as they win the Atlantic 12. And I think I'm going to go with Auburn. for my fourth number 2, but just because I think that they could potentially win the SEC championship, and that's going to pull some weight because they're going to move up. That's going to, they'll probably end up playing Kentucky, I would imagine, in the SEC championship, or they're going to play a good Iowa team, or not Iowa, Tennessee, sorry. And I just think, hey, we could see Auburn move up in there. Anything else here that you're excited, looking forward to March Madness? Who's a early favorite? Who do you think your early favorite is? I know there's not really that one team you're like, dang, like Virginia last year. Oh, yeah, they're going to win it.
I think, again, the thing I keep going back to is everyone keeps saying Baylor's really, really solid. They're really talented. I think Kansas is better. I think Kansas is better. I think Kansas is going to be in the Final Four. I think you said San Diego State undefeated. Again, I'm not so sure. I'm a little scared about them. I'm not sold, and I think Gonzaga's really good. I'll tell you, I think I would not sleep on Michigan State. They're very talented. I also, again, we look at some of these teams, we talk about hometown. Cincinnati gets hot. They have size. They rebound and play defense. They could be scary. You have talent, obviously, so they could be very scary as well. There's a lot of teams that in this year, it's not, you don't have that one team that you think is going to be the overwhelming favorite. You're going to have a lot of people in bracketology, I think, that's going to be picking some different teams.
Oh, yeah. I think one team that's going to be high, though, this year is Kansas. But to be honest, I know I was listening to Tony Kornheiser earlier. Not sold on Gonzaga. And I think this could be Gonzaga's year. And here's why. It's all open. It's this year there's not that Virginia or your Duke, North Carolina, Syracuse, typical Michigan State powerhouse teams this year. There's not like an over-dominant team, and I think Gonzaga can find themselves in the Final Four in that championship game and finally could, make it over and get their first championship. And to be honest, I like it. I like Gonzaga. They're my favorite going into March. All right.
And they've been there before.
Exactly. They've been there before. They know what's going on. I think they know what it takes to put together that. They have the mental strength and know what it takes to put together that 5-6 game stretch that they're going to need to make that run. But, man, I'm high on Gonzaga right now. And I normally don't go out of these small conferences in this because you don't play the competition that a Duke, North Carolina, Florida State, Virginia, Ohio State, Michigan State, Kansas. You don't play the competition that these teams play game in and game out. So I'm not really high on them. But come tournament time, all you have to do is have a good guard, have your guards play great, make your free throws, and you're probably going to win the game. All right, Corey. Well, it's time. It's time for Corey's Weekend Watch.
Ooh, this is a good week. This is a good week to be watching sports. Okay, so I've got pretty much 3 major things that you've got going on this weekend. Obviously, let's just start it off with, we were talking about basketball, in March Madness. Let's talk about a game, obviously, number 1, Baylor we talked about, and number 3, Kansas. Kansas visiting the Baylor Bears. Big test for Baylor this weekend on Saturday night. Big test.
And I think the winner of this game and potential Big 12 champion is going to get that number 1 overall seed.
It definitely seems to point that way. In this game, if I had to pick, I would again. I like Kansas. I think Kansas
is just too tough at home.
It's again in little moments. It helps to have someone who's been there, and I think Baylor is a great team. Take nothing away from them. They've been the best team all year. And no questions asked. But I think Kansas is going to go in there and beat them, and I think it's going to send a message, and I think Kansas will win.
All right.
What do you think?
I got Kansas as well. They're just too tough at home. They're just way too tough at home. That game's in
It's at Baylor.
Sorry. It's at Baylor.
At Baylor.
Kansas is going on the road.
Yeah.
They're a good road team too, though. Sorry, my fault, folks. I apologize about that. I thought that game was in Kansas.
Taking rock chalk.
But I still got to go with Kansas. Especially going into a hostile. But see, I don't even think Baylor's going to. It's going to be a hostile environment because it's going to be the biggest game of the year that Baylor plays at home. But Kansas gets that atmosphere every game at home. And they get that atmosphere every game on the road, too. So this is nothing new to them going into hostile environments. Also, their coach knows what it takes to win. So, again, Kansas going in on the road, I think they're going to pull the quote-unquote upset here.
All right. And then the next thing I've got to watch this weekend is obviously the beginning of spring training. Spring training begins this year. Obviously, we are the 513 Sports Attack. So, obviously, 513, we've got the Cincinnati Reds. It's going to be a good year, man. It's going to be a good year. I think.
What are you most excited about coming as a
have pitching.
As a fan?
We've got pitching. We've got hitting. I don't think it gets any better. This is the most excited I think I've been for Reds baseball in a while. Baseball, it's so long. The season is so long, but I'm sure you understand it. When the team is good, it's not that long. It could always go longer. And so I think obviously the Reds have a very good rotation for pitchers this year. I think 4 out of the 5 are unreal. I can't believe we have them. Hitting standpoint, I've said for a long time we needed to get protection for Votto. You've never had that guy that could be protection. To go out and sign Mike Moustakas, a guy who's a veteran, good guy in the locker room. You go out and sign the Japanese star. And you finally have some guys. I think they're going to be close. I think it's going to be a great year. I'm really excited. We talk about spring training. Next weekend I'll actually be there, so I'll be able to kind of get more inclined about them. But I think it's just going to be it's spring training.
What's your prediction then for the Reds going into the season?
I think they're going to win the division, and I think obviously it's too early to talk about the playoffs. Obviously, I would love to say they're going to win the World Series, but I think they have the potential. But I think they're to win the division. I think is step one, and I think they're going to do that this year.
Awesome. Since I moved down here to Cincinnati, I've noticed one thing. The front office doesn't like to go out and get sign people, but it looks like the front office is now saying, "Hey, we got to make some changes here." So, as I've heard, just around the city, Cory. As a bystander, I see a lot of chatter going on about the Reds so far. Even now in February, just hey, can't wait for the Red. Can't wait for opening day, because around the word is around the city is you're right, they're going to win the division. So let's hopefully that comes.
For sure. Obviously, something I'm looking forward to. So obviously, moving on here. Obviously, spring training is all weekend. On Saturday and Sunday, I don't want you guys to forget that football is still back. The XFL is still 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. It's been a fun ride, I think, so far. It's fun football to watch. It's kind of a little more low scoring, I think, than maybe expected. But I like it. I think it's a great thing. I like it a lot. So obviously, don't forget to catch the XFL this weekend as well. And then obviously the last thing that I really want to touch on this weekend, been waiting for it for a while. We've got Deontay Wilder, the champ, heavyweight champ, 42-0-1, 41 knockouts.
So wait, what's his record?
42-0-1.
Okay. And he has
41 knockouts.
Okay.
The highest in.
So probably one by decision. One by decision. The other ones are okay.
All right, and
that's
then you have
high percentage.
And then I mean every time.
Right.
And that's pretty much every time.
Right.
Then you have Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, Obviously, 20. I think he's 28-0-1, or 28 or 20. I think he's 28-0-1. I believe. My apologies. And I think it's one of those things. This fight, it's the second bout. Obviously, the one in both of theirs
was a split decision.
Is a split decision, but the first round. So I think number 2. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter already going around that this could be a trilogy. That they're talking about that this could be a trilogy. Every time I break this down, the champ. It's the champ. You can say, yes, Deontay Wilder is fast. You know, we were watching Sports Science and how fast he can dodge a punch.
Fury.
How Tyson Fury, how fast he can dodge a punch.
0.16 seconds, by the way, it takes him to react to a punch.
It's
unreal.
It's unreal. And obviously because he takes shorter steps, obviously they saw that here. But I'm taking Wilder. I'm taking the champ. I think he wants it. He wants to knock him out. Obviously, Tyson Fury said if he doesn't knock him out, it's not a win in his book. So I think they're both going for the knockout. The problem is in this fight, I think, I told you earlier, I think Tyson Fury is going to go box at 270. He's going to be a little slower. It may not be in the first round. It may not be in the second round. But one of those rounds, it only takes one shot. You take one of those you take that right hand, you take that little left hand jab, and then take the right hand overhand right to the fit. You're going down. And I think every time I look at it, it's Tyson Fury does not have a chance. Deontay Wilder is going to win. What do you think?
I gotta go with Fury. I have to go with Tyson Fury on this one. Not just because what we watched on SportsCenter breaking it down. I just think that the first fight was Fury just feeling him out too long and taking and not, and trying to really just dodge, do his weave game, and win by a decision. So, and I think this time, since Fury's actually going for the knockout, that could really change the complexion of this entire fight. I don't think we're going to see... I think we're going to see these guys go, throw haymaker after haymaker, just trying to go for the knockout. And I think it really is going to be Fury hitting that one punch to knock out Wilder.
Yeah, and obviously...
And it's...
Okay,
it's
so
really,
just to confirm,
really,
29-0-1 Fury is. 29-0-1.
See, and here's what I'm thinking for that, though, is Fury's just... It's the height difference to me. Because Fury
2
has...
inches. 2 inches.
But 2 inches is 2 inches, man. Especially in boxing.
His reach... Fury is 2 inches taller and has 2 inches in reach.
Yeah, see, and when Fury makes that one step back, if Wilder, for some reason, just loses his footing or, is going for, a haymaker and Fury sees it, I could see him just coming over with his right-hand haymaker and just boom, catching Wilder off guard on it. So I really have to go with Fury on this one, man. It's going to be a great fight either way, though.
It's going to be something you want to watch and not miss.
But I'll tell you what, if I would not bet on this fight. I would not bet on this fight.
I think it's going to be too tough.
Right.
But again, that's what we've got going on. That is Saturday night. Obviously, one thing I do want to point out about this fight is obviously it got a little heated today. On stage, and they actually banned them from going face-to-face at the weigh-in tomorrow.
So, and speaking about that, what's your opinion about that? Do you think Nevada was...
I think it's a good move. Smart move. Obviously, there was a little confrontation. There's going to be confrontation. They both want to knock each other out. I think just let them show up on Saturday and let them knock each other out. Don't let anything... Don't even risk... Don't risk the fight. Don't risk the fight over that.
100%. From that aspect, I think it's a good move. From a PR aspect, I think it's a bad move. just because there's a lot that can, like you were saying, there's a lot of tension during that point, and that could really build up the fight, for Saturday. But I agree to a point. You have to just say, hey, we got to protect our fight. We got to protect our investment. We're not going to let anything stupid happen where one of them could get banned from fighting in Vegas for a while. Just something stupid like that. I agree with it. But again, even to go against my own point here, it's Fury Wilder too. I don't think you really need that PR. The fight speaks for itself. So, but I do think you do get that. It's just that expected build up to the fight. You see it MMA, UFC, you see it everywhere where they just stand off, and it's great. Remember when Mayweather McGregor did it? It was awesome. But I agree with him. You have to protect your fight and protect your investment at this point.
Yeah, and like I said, it's going to be a great weekend in sports. So obviously, watch those 4 things. Obviously, anything else that's going to be on is obviously going to be all college basketball all throughout March. But obviously, that fight is what I'm really looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, the fight's the number one thing. But as you were saying, hey, college basketball for you bracketologists out there, now's the time to watch. You got to see how these teams are playing down the stretch. So, here's your chance to really get in, to hopefully go after that $1 million ESPN always puts out for the perfect bracket. So, just don't forget, for all your Ohio State needs, to also check out the OHIO podcast. They're pretty much out there on any platform you can think of.
Obviously, as well as we are at the 513 Sports Attack, obviously, please don't forget to give us a listen on Podbean. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any major one we are on. Please go ahead and give us a listen. Have any questions for us? Please don't hesitate. Please send us an email at 513sportsattack@gmail.com. Also, check out our Facebook and Instagram page at the 513 Sports Attack, and also you can check out us on Twitter as well. Thanks.
Appreciate y'all. One love.